class here with a wonderful contingent of people in real life as well as you, handsome Zoomers. Quite handsome of people in real life too. So, 2 blocks if you've got them, 2 blocks if you've got them. I know you've got them if you're here at the Buddhist Center, but if you haven't got them at home, you can use something that isn't 2 blocks, like 2 books. Other things are available. And then a blanket underneath the shins. The starting position is Sukhasana. Let me get my other screen and then I can see your faces, I think. So Sukhasana is cross-legged position, gap between the legs and pelvis. Buttock flesh drawn out and back. You might want to do that more than once. I'm just going to see, I'm just looking for you lot on here. Okay, there we go. Sit up tall. There you are. I can see you there. Good. Okay. Attention to the nose. Breathing through it, obviously. Shoulder blades soft down the back. Perhaps there's movement, perhaps there's not. Yoga, of course, ideally isn't an institution, it's not institutionalized, it's not commodified, it's not made into packaged up. We can summarize it as listening, responding, and that can be further summarized as absorption. There are hundreds of synonyms that could describe yoga. Spontaneous responsiveness, dance, Shakti, power, the real power, surrender, bliss. These are they're synonyms, I'd say, there are hundreds. But of course they're synonyms, so they all mean the same thing. They'll point to the same experience. Bring your hands to the heart center. Continue to breathe deep and expressive and natural. And even in advance, even before we start the class, we can have the intention to spread positivity through all beings by already transferring the merit from our practice. So we do that with this simple line, and then if you agree, you say Om at the end. May the merit gained in our acting thus go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. Om. Interlace your fingers, stretch your arms diagonally down, and raise the arms up. And breathe easy and honest and deep. Perhaps there's movement side to side. The purpose is yoga. Yoga is obviously the means, but it's also where we're heading. In fact, most texts use yoga as what we're heading to. So we have Hatha yoga. Yoga is attained by the means of Hatha. We have Bhakti yoga. We have yoga attained by the means of devotion. We have Jnana yoga. Yoga attained by the means of knowledge or knowing things as they really are. We have Sankhya yoga. Yoga attained by the means of counting. That needs more elaboration, but that's what it means literally, and so on. So yoga is one thing attained by possibly many, in fact, different means. Take a wide circle. Rest your hands on your legs and take deep breaths. Breath is everything to a yoga practitioner. We know that. Breath is everything. So take deep breaths, expressive breaths, honest breaths. So going with the flow of the breath. Super important. Now, a great yogin, a great yogini, a great practitioner of yoga gets more and more from less and less. They may already find themselves absorbed. Huh? Perhaps you at home have got what we at the Buddhist Center have, which is a beautiful, sunny atmosphere. The room is filled with photons. How lovely. Give your fingers a little wiggle and change the cross of the legs so the other leg goes in front. So that's simple. And you put the blanket underneath again. Well done. Chest lifted. Nasal breathing, because it hydrates, it warms, it slows, and it filters. That's enough for me, those 4 things, but there's a further list of positives to nasal breathing. But those are enough in themselves. So nasal breathing, attention in, adjusting as required, surrendered to subtle movements. Surrender to subtle movements. So that's not incumbent on us. As I mentioned before, yoga is not institutionalized, cannot be institutionalized, cannot be franchised, cannot be commodified. Not because we've got some sort of ideology around that, but just because it can't, any more than you can catch a handful of air. It exists, we'd all be dead without the air. You can't catch it in your hands because it's not its nature to be caught that way. And it's not the nature of something that's listening and responding and meditative absorption through that listening and responding to be able to be institutionalized, to be commodified, to be packaged, to be regulated as a sort of fixed one-size-fits-all. Interlace your fingers, stretch your arms diagonally, and raise your arms up. So in that regard, breathe through your nose, feel it out, play. Even close your eyes if you find that useful so as not to be distracted. And just feel into it. There's a sense in which you come away from an experience where life seems quite fractured into so many different particles, you and me, here and there, good and bad, right and wrong, success and failure, into this unified meditation, which is expressed through spontaneous breathing. That is to say, breath that's, just like easy, breath that's kind of surrendered, breath that's kind of natural. So that's how it is, like that. Okay. Take a big circle to release. Hands back in Jnana Mudra. Take a deliberately deep breath once you've landed, so that it triggers a set of deep breaths. Give your fingers a little wiggle once your hands are down, back on your legs. Okay. And we're going to bring the blanket to one side, remaining on a couple of blocks or whatever you've got as an alternative to that at home, and folding your legs. So they're folded back by the sides of your blocks, if blocks you have. If you haven't got blocks, it's definitely worth getting them. I think they're cheap. I haven't bought blocks for about 25 years, so I don't know how much they cost now. My blocks are quite old, antique almost. So you draw the buttock flesh out and back. Good job. So this is Virasana. You can sit on more blocks if you need to. Yeah, have one of mine. Have that one, Daryl. There you go. Have that one. You can have more. And should have more. How's that for you? You got it comfy? You and Daryl the same. But you're both very handsome men, so that makes up for your otherwise stiff knees. Stretch your arms diagonally down. We've got some very handsome people at the Buddhist Center today. You should see them. They're absolutely lovely. Raise your arms up and breathe easy. Okay, and play, right? So this is Virasana. That means hero. And it's quite something on the knees, but not just the knees, on the thighs too. It shouldn't be too tight in the knees, which is why you should take adequate support, enough support. But if you are stiff in the thighs, then, well, this is a good thing to do because, of course, it stretches the myofascia. We talk about myofascia quite a lot, but we don't just stick on myofascia. We recognize that myofascia is muscle and fascia. In fact, muscle is, in a sense, fascia, as it's fascially bound. It's bound together by fascia. But we recognize that myofascia's release is the release for the mind and the breath. So if you tighten the thighs, breathe into that. If it's intense, breathe into that. Move around if it helps to loosen that a bit. We don't overthink it. Let it be expressive. Okay, great job. Big circle, big circle. Well done. Hands one on top of the other. Catch your breath and study the micro changes within your knees, within your hips, within the buttocks. Okay, out of compassion, we'll come out. So we're coming out of that pose. You're probably going to want to stretch your legs out. Even with problem knees, Virasana is a good pose to practice, if practiced well, that is, with plenty of space. So we're going to come up into Ardha Mukha Svanasana, that's down face dog. So as soon as you're ready, make sure your hands are a little forwards of your shoulders. Hey Zoomers, I can see you all now. That's where you are. I know you think that you're there, but you're there. Anyway, it's good to see you. Lift up your bottom. Okay. And press from front to back. And play with it a little. Tips for slippery mats, in case you ever get one, is tip number one, use a belt, a yoga belt across the mat for the heels of your hands. That's one tip. Another tip, if that doesn't work, it usually does work, but another tip is to hold the yoga mat. But if possible, I'd prefer myself to use the belt. So that's for slippery mats. And then we're just playing through the back. Don't worry on whether or not your heels are down or up. If they go down and you lose space and length in the back, that's not useful. It's not useful. It's only useful if they extend down with a correlating lift up. So as the heels go down, there's a lifting up in the front of the legs. But also there's a lifting up or an opening up in the inner groins. In fact, it gets quite subtle, but we must never lose the extension through the lumbar and through the armpits, of course. Well done, everyone. Come down to hands and knees where you can catch your breath, and I can tuck in my t-shirt. Catch your breath on your hands and knees. Take 2 or 3 or 4 deep breaths. Just wag your tail a little bit. We're going to lay down on our tums. And once you're on your tummy, stay on your elbows. Great, good. It's nice temperature in here, isn't it? Nice temperature, just right. So lucky. I think it's the most beautiful yoga room in the world. Stretch your legs back and stretch your tummy forward. My second favorite, oh no, I can't say favorites because I go to lots of studios and they're all big cross. They're all great. All the studios are really great. About Balance is really great. Space is really great. Yoga Point is really great. Brighton Buddhist Center is really great. There you go. I've made it up in case anyone's listening. Stretch out your tum. Stretch, 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 stretch. So that you're doing that using your forearms, stretching out your tum. That's an abbreviation, of course, for tummy, but it is also the bija mantra for Tara, incidentally. Okay. Stretch, 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 stretch. And legs back too. Then from that position of being lifted up, bring one arm at a time back behind you with your thumb touching the floor and thumb touching the floor, both thumbs touching the floor. Your fingers can be extended. So that's kind of a bit of a load for your back, but that's good. Try not to squeeze the buttocks towards each other. The buttocks are hip extenders as well as the hamstrings, so they will be engaged, but try not to squeeze them towards each other. Lift your thighs a little bit. That's it. That's it. Just a little bit. Find the pelvic floor. Right? I know it sometimes feels like it's an exercise purely in survival, but let's break away from that and into detail. Find the pelvic floor. Through movement, through breath, through subtlety. Okay, well done. Release your hands. Place one hand on top of the other. Rest your head on your hands and take deep breaths. So resting your head on your hands is called Makrasana, and Makra is a mythological sea creature that you can see stylized on Vajras, and the school of yoga practicing with is called Vajrasati. There you go. To sort of link between things. Okay, now come back up onto your elbows and stretch your tummy forwards again. Preparation is really important. Stretch your legs backwards and your tummy forwards and move back and forth between those two stretches a few times. Tummy forwards, legs back. So you're stretching your legs back to turn them to face down and to open up the front and inner groins. Then place your hands by your mid ribs. Now this can be done with toes tucked under. If you're not sure whether to tuck under the toes or not, then tuck them under. Tone your tummy, that means suck it in. And we're going to lift everything off the floor and lift the chest. Come on up. Everything, yeah, good job. Now arch your back. That is to say, lift your chest. Look upwards. Breathe. If it's strong on your back and you feel like you want to furrow your brow. No, you're allowed. Move back and forth. Really useful to find the pelvic floor. Really useful. Even if you're in the midst of a sort of difficult moment, it's challenging. Now you can do this without your toes tucked under. Some people prefer that with your toes instead pointing back. This is Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Just a couple more breaths. I know it's quite a challenge. Then we're going to roll on the toes and come into Adho Mukha Svanasana. That's down face dog again. Okay. Well done, everyone. Those kind of back arches, tough as they are sometimes, are super important. Did you slip a bit on the mat, Yuko? Yeah. Breathe easy, jaw soft. Oh, deep breaths. Push from front to back. Now, sometimes things feel really impossible, like the body's super stiff and it's just like this big lump of stiffness and opposition. Well, that's great because that's your challenge, to find ways through, right? And that's where movement comes in. You know, to have faith that there are ways through, and then to find those ways through. Getting your hands to really connect with the mat is going to help, because the better connection you have, the better rebound of energy you're going to have. And then you can direct that energy like a river can be directed through the gaps, through spaces. It can open up gaps and spaces too. Well done. Back to hands and knees where you catch your breath. And you take 2 or 3 deep breaths right there on your hands and knees. So deep breaths. Anjaneyasana simply requires you to take 1 foot forward into the place of its own hand. You can do that in 1 move or 2 moves, or whatever works for you. Well done. Good job. Okay, now lift your back knee up and play with it. Move it back and forwards and up and down and whatever, whatever helps stream your experience into one flow. One of the problems that yoga notices that we have is called in Sanskrit chitta vikshepas, a scattered mind, right? Now moving your body, because the body is the mind, it's an expression of the mind. It doesn't take much thought to realize that that's true. Moving the body brings the mind together because they are the same. One's a physical expression of something that is a cerebral expression, but it's the same thing, and they affect each other completely, and they are each other. So move back and forth, up and down with the knee. You know, it's not, I can't dictate for us how to move, but apart from to say it's tuning in, looking for space, looking for openness. But there's definitely, amongst all this tuning in and looking for space and openness, there's definitely a sort of focusing aspect. Eventually, the knee will land on the floor behind the pelvis, right? Could be now or just whenever you're ready. And then one hand will come on top of the other on your front leg. Anjaneyasana. Breathe into your inner groin of your back leg. So focus. These tips about focus will help. Focus on your inner groin, the inner top thigh of your back leg, and imagine it opening up. So it's a psycho-physical release. You know, there's no 2 ways about it. It's a psycho-physical purification, we call it in yoga. You can raise the arms up, but don't have to. Focus, focus, focus on the release, and know that it's a release of body, brain, and breath. Palms facing in towards each other, roots of the neck soft, pressing into your front foot too. Good job. Well done, everyone. Come down, back down, nice and easy, and back to your hands And knees, where you catch your breath. So take a few breaths, jaw soft. And I find myself moving a little just to kind of ease the energy through. There's a lot of energy. You know, that can be quite intense, but it's purifying. It will intensify your perception post-class. Huh? I still remember vividly my first yoga classes at various places in Brighton, including the old Brighton Buddhist Centre where it used to be, leaving the class with this sort of squeaky clean perception of the world around me. That's what we're doing. Other foot forwards when you're ready. And then lift the back knee and play. Lila is play. So backwards and forwards. Again, you're not worrying about whether it looks right. You're focusing instead on whether it feels right, right? It's got to feel right. So back and forth, up and down, and so on and so forth. Looking for extension, looking for stretch, looking for openness. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain relaxed. Eventually, yes, we are going to land with the knee behind us on the floor. But we're going to do that in a way that feels, as we're moving towards that, more and more integrative. A valid translation of the word yoga is integration, isn't it? Integration of the various forces that seem to pull in different directions, but the truth is Prakriti is one. That is, nature is one. Climb up on your leg if you're ready to do that stage. Focus on your inner groin, on the inner groin, and know that it's a psychophysical release, necessarily. It's a psychophysical release. So deep breath, honest breath, toned tum. Raise your arms when you're ready. Great. Jaw soft, brain soft, throat soft. Keep focusing on the release, understanding that the release is psychophysical. You know, really understand that. Be willing to surrender. Be willing to give it up, the constructs, so that you can see the reality. Reality is obscured purely by constructs, mental projections that veil the beautiful, pristine reality that is all the beings that we know and love as they truly are, vibrant, interdependent. Okay, calm down. Okay, there's more to be said on that, but I won't say it now. Onto your hands and knees. Take deep breaths and just wag your tail. Wag, 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 wag. Okay, now you can use a block for what we're going to do next. Is Ekapada Raja Kapotasana. We're going to bring one knee directly behind its own wrist. The foot will move diagonally across the body. And the way you would use the block, if you were to use a block, would be under your buttock of the I don't like that, but some people find that useful to put a block or something underneath the buttock. And then some people immediately feel released when they come down. So feel free to do that. If you've got any dukkha in the knee, then lean towards it. Don't tolerate dukkha. Dukkha is from the Sanskrit root dus, which means to suffer or bad. It just means bad. So dukkha it means a bad space. Ka, it means space. So if you've got any dukkha in the knee, lean over it until that's gone. And, please it's never part of yoga to tolerate pain in the joints, especially sharp pain. That's never part of yoga practice. So either down on your forearms or over your knee if that's alleviating any dukkha, or up as I've got myself here, depending on what suits you. Breathe through your nose, move if it helps, and disappear. It's like falling in love. It's like dancing. You disappear, right, into the very, very rich experience that we've rarefied parts of to sort of claim as mine, like our age or our thoughts or our gender or our familial biases or whatever, part of the country we're from, or, physical sensations we have. the shapes of our bodies and so on. All of that, it belongs to Prakriti, which is one. Everybody's thoughts affect everybody else's thoughts. So that's not the original you, as it were, the Adi Atman. That's everything. And that's beautiful that that's everything. By recognizing the oneness of Prakriti, you immediately also discern the sort of pristine freedom of what I've called the Purusha, the consciousness, the soul, we call it whatever you want. But it is that which is not gendered, aged, or belongs to one culture or another, or, you know, even one species or another. That experience about yourself that you recognize as free. Now, if you are up, you come down. If you're down, you come up. And we're going to bring the back knee forwards by tucking under the back toes and bringing the knee forwards. And then onto your hands and catch your breath. Again, we have a little shimmy, shimmy shake of the pelvis, taking deep breaths. And we know, I could theoretically have an incredibly quick tea break now because you know what's happening next. The other knee forwards, the other foot diagonally. And the same things apply, of course, that you can move across your leg. You can use a block under your knee. You can I find massaging it, excuse me, I find massaging into it really useful. Just to kind of hydrate the fascia around the gluteal muscles, aka the arse, and also around the IT band, the iliotibial tract along the outer leg, and muscles that connect to that, like the tensor fascia lata. So just massaging into it, breathing into it. So play, lila. You can be down or up, whatever suits you. Some people feel so much relief immediately when they come down. They're like, oh God, thank God, that's better. Tension is not negative. Tightness is not a problem. Tension and tightness and resistance, including emotional resistance as well as physical, is the raw material that the yoga practitioner transmutes, as it were, into absorption. They do that by challenging, by bringing up resistance, by bringing it to the surface. We might think, well, you know, why would I do yoga? Because I don't feel these challenges when I don't yoga necessarily, although you probably do, but in more subtle ways. Well, we do it to bring it up, and we bring it up to exorcise it, to cleanse from the nervous system a habit that's causing the opposition to the way things are, in this case, in this moment, the posture. Right? Deep, expressive, honest, disappeared, in love. Power, Shakti. Okay, we'll come out by coming down or up, depending on where you are. Back knee forwards and coming back. 2 hands and knees. From the hands and knees position, I will apologize in advance. Some people don't like this, but it won't last long. The high heel kneeling position. You are exempt from high heel kneeling if you have metal work in your feet. If you hate it to bits, you're not exempt from it, sadly. I'd love to help you on that. Once you're up, we're not going to be up for long because I like you. We're going to come from there to a little squat, right? So a little squat with the heels up, which is a bit better, but still not fun for everyone. A little squat with the heels up. From the little squat with the heels up, we're going to lift up our bottoms and bring the heels down thereby. So the hands will be on the floor, the bum comes up, the
heels will come down. Good job. Keep the knees, well, you don't have to keep them bent. It depends. You know, if your hamstrings are quite long or your legs are very short and your arms are very long, you potentially could be fine with the knees straight. But most of us, it's a knees bent position. Most of it's a knees bent position. Some people might find moving their feet useful in terms of hydrating the back chain of fascia. That is the chain that moves through the feet, the calves, the thighs, the buttocks, the back, the neck, even across the scalp. So moving and breathing, perhaps moving the feet. For me, it's invaluable to move my feet. I'm not saying it's invaluable for you, but it might be. Now we're going to creep forwards with our hands and backwards with our feet. So we're in Adho Mukha Svanasana, the downward facing dog. Okay? So as soon as you're ready, you come into a downward facing dog, padding your paws, opening up your armpits, inner and outer, breathing deep. Breathing deep. We should check our hands equidistant from the front and sides of the mat, of course. So make sure you do. We're going to get those feet back there. Have a look at them. Oh, there they are, right back there. To those hands over there. Look at them. Oh, seems like a long way. You could step, jump, roller skate, or whatever, stagger. You get your feet forwards. Huh? Good job. Good jumping here at the Brighton Buddhist Centre. Take it easy, though. It's quite a big thing. Bend your knees, go keep them bent. Raise your arms up behind you as if you're skiing fast downhill, right? Palms facing in for more aerodynamics. And if you've ever been skiing, I'm told, people that have been skiing find it hard to resist recreating the little bumps that you feel under your feet. Okay, so you're welcome to recreate those. I've just hear it on hearsay that this is something people, oh gosh, some of you at home are doing some wonderful skiing, quite fast. Careful, don't go too fast. Oh, look out for that fern tree. Look out, and then arms up. Good. Breathe easy, play with it. Palms facing medially in towards each other, and you can feel free to go up and down. Keep those knees bent, up and down. Bend quite strongly at the knee, actually, and at the hip, so that your body leans forwards, palms face in. Stand up and take a big circle. Stand up and take a big circle. Hands to the heart. And then we're going to step the feet apart to a wide stride, facing, if you're here at the BBC, towards this beautiful sun, which has behind it an even more beautiful Buddha. Beautiful painting by Arloka. Stretch your arms out. Okay, nice, easy breathing. Turn your left toes in and your right foot and leg out on the ball of the foot. Finish off the turn on the heel. So you end up with heel to arch alignment, which I think we need to check. Yeah, good, 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 good. Inhale. Raise up. Exhale. Calm down. Feel the movement. You can feel straight away the hamstrings. Oh, there they are. All those hamstrings. Breathe into them. Breathe into them. It's not just the hamstrings, it's the whole chain, the myofascial chain. Take deep breaths, honest breaths. Allow yourself to move, because remember, subtle movements can increase the hydration and therefore the glide and therefore your happiness. Huh? Because glide is the same as non-attachment. Non-attachment means that you're not grasping after particulars within the field. In other words, you merge back into the field. What is the field? Well, it's the interdependent field that all thoughts, all breaths, all sensations are part of. Nothing happens in a vacuum, in other words. Inhale, come on up. Hands onto the hips, feet facing forwards, breathing through your nose, back toes in when you're ready. Front foot and leg out on the ball of the foot, finish off the turn on the heel. That should ensure heel to arch alignment. Just bring your zoomers closer. I like seeing you on that screen there. Stretch your arms. Good. Just double check those back toes. Yuko. Thanks ever so much. Inhale. Exhale. Come down. Breathe easy. I like that white nail varnish, by the way. I like that a lot.
I might actually copy that. Take deep breaths with jaw soft, breathing easy, and enjoy, which means, well, what does it mean for you to enjoy this? Apart from sort of, not doing it or something. What does it mean to you to enjoy it? For me, it means the movements come that help to hydrate the tissue so that the resistance in the body begins to dissolve. And that means that your experience is not divided. In other words, there's what's happening and then there's what's happening in the nervous system. They should be together. For that to happen, the nervous system has to be cleansed. That's what we're doing. Right? But it's only possible not just through the poses, but through breathing into the poses. Inhale. Well done. Come on up. Hands on the hips. Breathing easy. Jaw soft. Walk the feet all the way in towards each other, left to right to left, and then give yourself a little kick out moment. Shake out, kick out, shimmy out, whatever you find most funky. And then feet together. And standing up tall in Tadasana. Now, when I say together, they don't actually have to physically touch the feet. It would actually be a disadvantage to bring your feet together if your thighs met before your feet and then you try to force your feet together. That's not useful for several anatomical reasons. So having them apart is actually more traditional, to be honest. That is presuming that the pose has its origins within Jainism, as I believe. Raise the arms up, roots of the neck soft, and breathing easy. Roots of the neck soft, breathing easy. Light tone in the tummy. And moving in ways that draw everything together. To all the various different pulls that we experience as various different loyalties we have, things that we're trying to honor. And, you try and do this thing, but then that thing goes, and you try and try and be a good person in this area, but then you haven't done the other. All those different draws, all those different plates that you spin are expressed in the body. So bring them together through movement so that all the fibers align, as it were, energetically. They all start singing the same note, or at least they're singing in harmony. Good. Take a big circle, hands to hips, step the feet again apart. Check that the toes are equidistant from the sides, from the front, and not so much from the sides, from the front of the mat. Left toes in, right foot and leg out on the ball of the foot first, finish off the turn, the last little bit on the heel. Heel to arch alignment, which you'll check and double check. And then imagine and feel a meditative opening that comes between the front hips. It's a meditative opening. So as you breathe, imagine as you bend your legs that there's sort of release in two directions, which you can feed into through movements that might help. So for me, sometimes moving my foot helps because I can use that to get little fibers right into the knee, even aligned. I'm not saying that helps for you. I'm just saying something like that might. Elbow down when you're ready, arm up, look up. It's a bit treaty at the Brighton Buddhist Center to look up because it's just blue sky, right? Well, with some nice pretty clouds too. So that's pretty lovely. And a Vishvavajra in the middle of that. Vishvavajra represents the entire universe. Stretch up and over. Breathing honestly. Jaw soft. Playing. So deep, honest, expressive breaths and playing. So moving backwards, moving forwards. Really encouraging openness. Make sure your top arm is not compressing your head. It should be off your head. Okay, arm down, palm down, push, come up on the inhalation. Feet forwards, hands to hips. Deep breaths, plural. Deep breaths, plural. Turn your back, toes in, front foot and leg out on the ball of the foot. Finish off the turn on the heel. Heel to arch. Be aware between the front hip points. Expressive breath, jaw soft. Again, we're going to imagine this opening up that correlates with the bending of the knee. So when you're ready, bend your knee. But feel the openness. Can you feel it? Take some breaths if you can't feel it. And then sort of calmness, I used to say, the old version of Jim Tarrant. Well, this is the older, but you know, the one in the past. Used to say calmness conditions connection. And I stand by that Jim of the past, even now in the present. Elbow down, palm up. So calmness conditions connection. You want to connect to the body to feel open between the front hips. You've got to be calm. Stretch the arm up and stretch the arm over. And look up under your armpit. And breathe easy. Light tone in the tummy. Little movements might be helpful. They help to hydrate, but they also help to tune, like a radio, like an old-fashioned radio. Tunes into a clear and crisp signal eventually from fuzz and from white noise. Your breath tells you if the signal is clear. If it's shallow, that's not clear signal. If it's a powerful experience of interdependence that negates clinging, that's the clear signal. Good job, everyone. Arm down, palm down. Come up on the inhale. Well done. We're going to forward fold in Prasarita Padottanasana, and this might mean blocks in front of you. So walk your feet towards each other, and if you know you need blocks, then get yourself some blocks, and if you don't know, then get yourself some blocks. If you haven't got blocks, you could use almost anything. You know, at home you'll have something. For instance, I have this delicious NutriBullet that I haven't drunk yet. In fact, the tahini is not entirely dissolved into it, but you can use even a NutriBullet if you happen to have that. So it's just an example of literally anything you could use. I could go around the Buddhist Center and find other things, but be creative. So most people need blocks. If you're not sure, easier to lose equipment than it is to gain it. Blocks can be ahead of you. Lift up from your groins, up through the chest, inhale. Exhale, fold forwards. Just make sure your toes are turning in, even as you're coming down. And then fingers to the blocks or the floor. You've got short legs, long arms, maybe to the floor. Right. The criteria for ascertaining whether it should be the floor or otherwise is that your anterior spine should be open. What is your anterior spine? What's the front of your spine? It should be open. So if your anterior spine doesn't feel completely open, come higher up onto your fingertips. Higher. In fact, everyone come a little higher except you come in the room. And at home too, you can go a little higher to your fingertips or to blocks and get that whole front line open. Right? So you imagine it's like a channel. And that channel has a little hollow through the center. That's why it's a channel. So like a little tube, you could say, or a channel. And it wants to not be blocked anywhere. It wants to be open. All the way along its length. That's your project. That's your mission. Is to accept it. Okay. On top of this, balance your ankles, right? Which means A, make sure your toes are turned in. Just check that now. Turned in. B, that you don't have excessive tightness on the outer ankle, which is very common, very likely to happen. So you adjust that by moving your feet several times and feeling the relationship between the outer and the inner ankle, and just keep adjusting until it feels there's more balance. It tends to feel like you're drawing the outer ankle in and lifting the inner ankle up. It's got elements of that about it. Huh? But of course, the reality is always more sophisticated than words can say, but it's got elements of that. Outer ankle in, inner ankle up. So coming up onto your fingertips, staying on your fingertips is called Prasarita Padottanasana Ekam, number 1. You can fold further over the top of your front thighs if the spine stays open. But if you start closing your spine, that's not going to be at all beneficial. So
Only fold further forwards. It's difficult because language makes it sound like that's better, further or further. I'm going further than I was before, further than, people have ever been before, Star Trek thing, Further isn't better here, it's further from here. The surface of the moon is further from here than than Brighton seafront. But I die on the surface of the moon and I wouldn't at Brighton, so it's not better because it's further. So we must stop equating further with better, especially in yoga, and simply equate absorption with better, disappearing and re-arising with better. Deep, honest, and expressive. Okay. Coming back to fingertips and walking your feet towards each other, and then coming up all the way, leading with your chest, nice and slow so you don't get dizzy. Well done, everyone. Now, in a minute, you're going to need a belt, so make sure you've got a belt nearby you. Or if you haven't got a belt at home, you can use dressing gown belt and so on. Lots of different alternative things you can use. And you're going to need before we use the belt, we're going to use 2 blocks. So that is short end to short end with the blocks. Sorry, let me say that again. Long side to long side. Long side to long side. That's like that. Like that. And like Yuko's got it, if you're in the room here, and if you're at home, you'll probably, sadly for you, you won't be able to see Yuko, but you can see me. Not quite as nice to look at as Yuko, but I'll do, and I can show you the blocks. Now, if you've got longer legs, you can take the blocks a little bit away from each other. I personally don't need to, but some people find that useful. Oh, and then let's do the Dharmakara method. What is the Dharmakara method and why is it so named? It's folding the end of your mat over your blocks. And it's so named after the great being that is known as Dharmakara, who teaches and works at the Brighton Buddhist Center, and who first did this in one of my classes, and I thought, that's a good idea, Dharmakara. Michael Fibes. Okay, now tuck under the buttocks, come down to your elbows, tuck under again, come all the way down to the floor. So it's just laying down essentially, but you've got to tuck your buttocks under. We're going to stretch our arms up and breathe deep. I wish I could share with you. I mean, I could, but it might disturb the camera angle, and I'll just set it all up again. I'll share with you at the end the view out of the skylight of the Buddhist Center, because for us here, we're having a lovely time looking up at those clouds passing. Stretch your arms up and move your arms left and right to move your scapula, your shoulder blades. And keep doing just that, moving your arms left and right to move your shoulder blades. Eventually, the arms will come down to the floor. And the breath will be deep and expressive and honest. Neck soft, jaw soft, deep, expressive, and honest. Supta, supine, sukha. Good space, a supine, good space. Change the cross of your legs when you're ready. Some people find, and I sometimes do myself, I have to say, it useful to bring the hands to the top of the buttocks and just scoot under. So that's from the bony ridge just above at the top of the pelvis. Just scoot under the buttocks with your hands. I find that really useful. And I quite like then that I get to reiterate the movement of my arms. So that's an option. You know, I think it's, you know, quite a good option. Breathing through your nose, adjusting whenever flow requires it. Clouds that move through the sky don't need anyone to move them. They're selfless, they're part of nature, they're interdependent with endless other factors, endless. Whether it be, you know, the distance that the earth is from the moon and from the sun, the size of the earth, the amount of water on the earth, the beings that are on the earth who are making the air pressure, and so on. Clouds move in the sky. Breath is the same. It doesn't need somebody to move. You take this somebody out of the equation and there's still clouds moving. There's still breath moving. There are still thoughts arising and passing. There are still reactions. In yoga, we're not trying to become a reactionless being. We're simply seeing the selflessness of those reactions. And therefore, we have a certain amount of freedom given back to us, whether or not we go with those reactions, those conditioned responses. Okay, bring your arms forwards and bring your knees up. Now, this is where you take your belt that I didn't get for myself. Anyway, I'm going to have to mime a belt. Raise your leg up and bring your belt around the heel of, well, it doesn't matter which leg. If you've got short legs and long arms, it's okay to not use a belt, but I would suggest that pretty much everyone benefits more from using a belt than they do from not. And in fact, I would go as far as saying, you know, everyone. So just breathing into that. Belt's at the front of the heel because the calcaneus is a stable bone. That's the heel bone. And if you feel that intersection there with where the heel intersects with the arch through the belt, it causes a rebound of energy up your leg. Keep your arms straight. Walk up the belt as far as you can in terms of the arms anyway, but not so far that your leg doesn't straighten. So you've got to get a balance between the arm and the leg. Your breath is super important. And what matters here is that it's given to expression. One expresses. Okay, bring that leg down, catch your breath, raise the other one up. Similarly, bring the strap to the front of the heel and breathe through the nose. Neck is soft, jaw is soft, throat is soft, tongue is soft, brain is soft. Breath expressive. It's a meditation. What does that mean? You surrender to the selflessness of the breath. You surrender to the selflessness of subtle change. And through that surrender, the universe takes on its dance, its natural dance to find balance. It's always balancing itself, rebalancing itself naturally. That's what the universe is doing all the time, balancing and rebalancing naturally. That's what your body mind is doing. naturally. It doesn't come from struggle. It doesn't come from self. It doesn't come from somebody trying to do it. That all stops or inhibits this natural tendency to balance that's inherent in Prakriti. Okay, well done. Bring the leg back down. Put the belt to one side for now and pop your hands underneath your head, fingers interlaced. And again, there's a bit more sky watching for us lucky participants at the BBC, Brighton Buddhist Centre. Flex up your hips, lower back close to the floor. Lift up your head, lower back close to the floor. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft. Extend one leg to about 45 degrees relative to the floor. It loads the belly. Make sure it does load the belly and not the back by pushing the lower back to an intimate relationship to the floor. Flex that leg back and flex the other. Similarly, make sure it's loading the belly. That's also an opportunity for meditation. Do it one more time on each side in your own time. At the end of the movement of the leg, there's a little coiling up of the potential energy that then pulls the leg back the other way. So at the end of each movement of the leg, whether it's an extension or a flexion, there's a little recoil of potential energy that's ready to take the leg the other direction. Head down, feet down, deep breath. So that little coiling and recoiling, we're going to revisit that in a minute. So I'll just reiterate that when you extend your leg, as it extends, the energy that extended it coils up for potential energy. When it releases, that potential energy returns to kinetic energy, and it coils up at the other end. This is pointing to the roots of the whole practice of Kundalini Yoga, but Kunda meaning coil. But let's explore that again as we flex up our hips. Flex up your hips, lift up your head. Extend one leg. Feel or imagine this coiling up of potential energy as the leg reaches full extension, and then it moves back to kinetic energy, coils up at the other end. Stays as coiled up potential energy, you extend the other leg. Coiled up potential energy at the end of the extension, and then it moves back, and coils up, ready to extend again. So we go back to the first leg, which still has that potential energy. Now it expresses it. Coils up at the end of the extension, lower back close to the floor, and goes back the other way, coils up at the other end. Do the same again on the other leg. Keep the lower back close to the floor. Coils back up. Potential energy coiling. Okay, head down, feet down. Everyone takes deep breaths, right? Several deep, expressive, natural breaths. They're so important for the benefits that we all want from yoga to be able to manifest. You've got to let your breath express itself. What are the benefits that we want? We want to feel clearer. We want to feel brighter. We want to feel more available for our loved ones. We want to understand the way things are instead of being confused. Now we're going to take the strap or the belt back again, and we're going to raise up the first leg again. And we're going to hold the foot with one hand only. Now, I haven't got a strap here, so I'll give instruction also for people who aren't using a strap, who have a large range of motion or incredibly short legs and incredibly long arms, right? So most people are better off using a belt. One belt around the foot, around the front of the heel, held with one hand. And the pose itself is called Padangusthasana, so that does intimate holding a big toe, but it's not, most of us are holding a belt because it's better that way. Pull the leg towards you and then out to its own side. Breathe into it, imagine it releasing. Feel the inner thigh muscles. The other knee might move in the opposite direction to counterbalance. That's fine. It's allowed. Okay, return to center. Return to center. And bring your foot back down and catch a breath or two. We do have another Ollie classic in the pipeline, in fact, in regards to return to center. One of my favorite bits of art around this yoga practice is a marvelous stylized picture of Elvis Presley with this aphorism, return to center. Anyway, raise the leg, other leg that is up, bring the strap around the foot, around the front of the heel, holding with one hand, breathing deep. Let the neck relax too. Remember, everything intimates attitude. Bhava in Sanskrit is attitude. Attitude is important. Our approach dictates the results. So if your approach is gripping, grasping, grabbing, trying, your neck might shorten. Conversely, you might move out of gripping, grasping, grabbing if you relax your neck. So breathe easy, jaw soft. Pull the leg towards you and out to its own side. You might visually feel a sort of melting. You visually feel, so there's two components, isn't it? Visualization, for those of you that can visualize. I think it's, common, but some people can't. But most people can, so if you can do. Okay, good job. Bring the leg back up in your own time, and then foot back down. Draw a deliberately deep breath in and a deliberately deep breath out, and release your foot. Come up from the side when you're ready. Now, all that chat about Kunda and Kundalini, we're going to bring into a little practice now. So I hope you kind of got what I was saying about the coiled up energy. At the end of when your leg extends, you're going to get potential energy, right? And then it coils back the other way. So that we're going to bring into a seated position of your choice. I'm going to suggest Siddhasana, but it doesn't have to be Siddhasana if Siddhasana is not comfortable for you. I would sit on a brick block for Siddhasana. If you have one, you have one, good. If that's comfortable and possible, you can also sit higher in Siddhasana and support your shins like that with a blanket. So you could have a brick block even on a regular block, for example, and more supports under your shins, if that felt more comfortable. One of the hallmarks of Siddhasana is that the heels are lined up with each other and the midline of the body. The actual way it's described in Hatha Yoga texts is not how we're going to practice it for several reasons. So once you're comfortable, it's important to be comfortable and upright. We're just going to notice 3 points, right, for the breath to follow. The first point is the Dwadashanta. So we're going to measure that. So Dwadash means 12, Anta means end of. So the end of 12 finger widths is the Dwadashanta. So you measure, let's measure together. 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 12. Okay, so you've got your Dwadashanta. And it's been proven, there was an article about this a few years ago in the New Scientist, that we can sense a field around our body, beyond, sight and hearing and so on. So you can sense the Dwadashanta. That's the top point. The bottom point is going to be the pelvic floor, although other systems have another bottom point. And then the middle point is the heart center. Okay, so if you feel those 3 points, imagine your breath is coming in from the Dwadashanta, down, coiling up as you hold your breath, so it's in potential energy ready to release. And then as you breathe out, that turns into kinetic energy, coils back up at the Dwadashanta, right? And then you just keep going like that. So the coiling up is the energy coiling itself up into potential energy as you pause, and that releases as you breathe out or in, back up through the central channel.
For me, I tend to visualize these coils as going forwards on the lower Kundalini and coiling up backwards, as it were, on the upper Kundalini. I don't know if that's how it works for you. But the breath pause is where that energy just gathers itself. Now remember, the energy never stops in the universe. It just changes different forms. So kinetic energy changes to potential energy. Then it releases back to kinetic. Now in a moment, we're going to draw a deep breath in down to the pelvic floor, feel the kinetic energy, and then attach to it a bija mantra Om, and then let it release all the way through the central channel with that Om back to the crown of the head. So when you're ready, take that last deep breath in. When it reaches the top point and you breathe back in, draw the energy to the heart and hold it in the heart. So hold the breath in the heart once you breathe back in. Breathe out normally, but keep the energy in the heart. This is how we're told to practice in the tantras. Bringing the energy to the heart. So the lower Kundalini rises up and breaks through the various barriers and joins with the upper Kundalini. And then they're both drawn down to the heart where they rest with the middle Kundalini, and we become profoundly centered. Really base yourself in that heart today. Ground yourself in that heart center. Make that the root of all action and speech. We're going to come to laying on our backs, but we're not going to forget the energetic center from which we're moving. So we're going to come down to laying on our backs when we're ready. Of course, if we had ages, we would be staying for longer in this seated position. Next weekend, I'll be teaching a retreat. And it reminds me to tell you that next Friday and Saturday, there are no classes either on Zoom or in real life, but all classes after that and before that are on as normal because I'm teaching a retreat. And during that retreat, we will be able to stay longer. If you think, God, I wish I was on that retreat, you have my empathy. But there's another one in November, on the Guy Fawkes weekend. So if you want to book that, that's getting booked up. That's an advert. I'm just advertising at the moment. Anyway, palms facing up once you're laying on your back. Shoulder blades scooted under. Laying on your back as comfortably as you can. So the chest has this lovely buoyant feeling when you've scooted your shoulder blades under. There's a lovely buoyant feeling. Enjoy that lightness. Enjoy that lightness. And we can take it further by giving the body entirely to gravity. So the arms and the legs. And the head and the chest, all is given. We can also give to the breath the body. So there's this sense of totally giving. Allow a little movement into your toes and fingers and ankles and wrists. So you start to just feel into your body. You start to feel a sense of coming round. When you feel ready to do so, bend your knees and place your feet onto the floor and scoot the buttocks under so your lower back feels long. Then roll onto your side. If you're in the room, roll away from the front of the room where I was teaching. If you're at home, roll to your left. Then when you're ready, roll again and lay as comfortably as you can on your other side. Let in a bit of light and color. Perhaps rub your eyes. Stretch out an arm or a leg. And when you're ready to come up, bring yourself up nice and easy from the side. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you at home, streaming in here at the Brighton Buddhist Center. Namo Buddhaya. Look forward to seeing you all again soon. I'll say my farewells to the Zoomers first. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Try and have a lovely day. Make sure you have a lovely day. Promise. Promise to have a lovely day. Good. Okay, thanks. See you soon.